Good morning, great morning. Welcome back to another Nudelberg Daily Huddle. Excited to kick off the day with you guys, close the week out with you guys. Patrice Jimenez here early this morning. Happy Friday to you. Good morning to Debbie Hammer. Good morning, Chris White. Very excited about this episode. We do Huddler in the Hot Seat every single Friday. And this one particular has already become my favorite episode because I get to have a conversation with a good friend of mine, a mentor of mine, and somebody that I've respected for a long, long time in both arenas of my career now. Tony Levine, who is the former head coach at the University of Houston, now a Chick-fil-A franchisee owner, and just an awesome, awesome human being that I've learned so much from throughout my career. So excited for that later on today. But yesterday was awesome. We got the opportunity to go down to Chica Lodge and spend the afternoon with our people at RCC Associates doing a leadership retreat for them. And it was awesome. We discussed all things leadership when it comes to mindset, when it comes to time management, when it comes to building trust, when it comes to communicating. So really good stuff. And wouldn't you know that Steve Nudelberg is joining us this morning from all the way in the Mediterranean. I don't remember exactly where he's at today, but he's somewhere cruising around the Mediterranean. So it was a great day yesterday. Shout out to the RCC crew. And it was beautiful at Chica Lodge. So really great. Greg Goldstein said waffle fries for everyone who attended today. I don't know. Maybe we will figure some way for Tony to give everybody some Chick-fil-A, and maybe somehow he can get it to us on a Sunday. But let's go. Super excited for this conversation. So we are going to give the wake-up music. We are going to have his walk-up music, and then we are rocking and rolling with Tony in the hot seat.
Let's go.
Wake up, everybody. Get up, get up, get up, get up. Wake up. Come on, come on. Wake up, everybody. Teach a new way. Maybe then they'll listen what you have to say. Wake up, everybody. No more sleeping in bed. No more about to thinking, time of thinking ahead. Come on.
Tony, welcome to the show. And I have to say that I'm going to guess that you never ran out of the tunnel to Charlie Parker, that was never a tunnel song.
That's a good guess. That's a good guess. You know what? I'm a lifelong saxophone player, and that is my all-time favorite jazz piece. So when you ask
my God, how have I never known that you are a lifetime sax player?
lifetime, still play it.
That's
one of my all-time favorites.
This could derail the whole conversation because all right. So Tony Levine, welcome to the show. Welcome to being a huddler in the hot seat. Thank you for being here this morning with us. But give us your story. Tell us where you come from. Tell us who you are. Tell us what's important to you.
Yes. So a little bit of my background, born and raised up north in St. Paul, Minnesota. And I guess going back a little bit to my high school days, was very involved in a lot of different activities, played several sports. I mentioned the saxophone here a second ago, and then actually didn't go out for the football team until I was in 11th grade, my junior year. So had some opportunities to continue in music, and got a call late my senior year from the University of Minnesota asking me if I'd be interested in joining their program as a walk-on. So kind of weighed out in my mind that I could play my saxophone my whole life. If I didn't give this a shot here, I may look back one day and wonder, could I have played not only football in college, but at the Division I level. So walked on, played wide receiver, ended up earning a scholarship and starting there for 3 years, and then got into coaching football. So for almost 25 years, I coached football at really every level. Started off in high school and went to small college at what used to be Southwest Texas State. It's now Texas State, and primarily coached in college, places like Purdue, Western Kentucky, University of Houston, Auburn, Louisville, and moved all over the country. Ended up coaching for the Carolina Panthers for a couple of years. And then I guess to finish out my story this morning, about 8 years ago, I ended up having an opportunity to be a head football coach. And during those years, our kids just got into the age, my bride and I have four kids, where they were getting involved in a lot of activities, flag football. Our daughter was doing dance, piano lessons for all of them, and just a number of things. And I attended nothing. I was all consumed with trying to win football games and run a program. I was sleeping in my office couch 4 nights a week. And my bride's from Birmingham, Alabama. I'm from Minnesota, as I mentioned, and we absolutely loved Houston, Texas. We'd been here for 7 years at that point. And I said, you know what? I'm looking for potential career change, and really looking for 3 things. And one, so my dad's had his own accounting practice his entire life. My brother, I have one brother, he and I were going to go to college and be accountants and work with him. And when he got to college and we talked, I said, you know what? I don't know if I want to be an accountant and sit there and do tax returns. And he said, I don't either. So we met with our dad and said, I don't think we're going to follow in your footsteps. He said, what do you want to do? And I said, I want to coach football. My brother said, I want to be a high school band director. So he said, I'm going to support you. And I love that. The only question he had for us is, I just want to know why. I'm curious as to why. And both of us said, you know, we just feel called and passionate about trying to give back and pour into people's lives and try to make a difference. That hopefully, at least for our football players at that time along the way, one day they'd say, you know what, as a husband and a father, maybe I learned this from Coach Levine. So that's what we did. And that's what I was passionate about. So when I was looking for a possible change, but still wanting to do what I was passionate about and see my family more, have some work-life balance, and stay in Houston and stop moving around all over the country, thought if we could get a Chick-fil-A franchise, that might check all of those boxes. So a few months ago, we celebrated our 5-year anniversary of having our Chick-fil-A here in Missouri City, Texas. It's a suburb in South Houston.
So I want people to understand you made it sound so easy. You made it sound like you just went from, number one, saying no to the family business, which I know can be a difficult thing to do at that time in your life, because I did something similar with my dad. But then also, for me personally, I can say that my identity was somewhat built around being a ball coach. Like, everything that I had done and everything that I had worked for was to be a ball coach. And at 32, for me to have to think about, well, maybe that's not who I want to be. Maybe that's not what I really want. What was that like for you? Because you had a much longer career, much more distinguished career than I had, and you had that same revelation for yourself.
Well, so when I give you my answer, Mark, people are going to think you and I staged this answer, because you stole my word right there and you went right into it. So I think the word identity is a word that I think maybe some people don't give enough thought to as they go throughout their life, and certainly as they consider their career and go through their career. One of the things that I was always able to do, and I was very conscious about that word, and try to be conscious and intentional about who I was, is I coached football for almost 25 years, and I absolutely loved it. Absolutely loved it, as I know you did. Loved it. And sure, there were ups and downs, and I get all that, and it comes with any profession, but I absolutely loved it. But that didn't define me, and that wasn't who I was. So when I got out of coaching, so my last game was at Purdue. We played Arizona in the Foster Farms Bowl out in San Francisco in December of 17. And then 3 months later, I was in a fast food restaurant in Houston, Texas, handing out barbecue sauce. And I would have people come up to me all the time for about the first 6-8 months. And they would say, how did you do this? You were a football coach. And I would say, just like I'm saying now, I did it for 25 years. I loved it. But with all due respect, I wasn't a football coach.
Mm.
That's what I did. And again, absolutely loved it. But my identity, I mean, I'm a husband, I'm a father, that's who I am. So when people come to the restaurant, there's at least certainly early on, and I feel like I still have a lot of joy because I absolutely love what I'm doing. But people would say, you look so filled with joy and so happy what you're doing. And 6 months ago you were coaching football on ESPN, which a lot of people think that's the pinnacle, or that's what I'd love to do that. Well, and I did again. I loved it. But for me, the transition in that sense, I think wasn't as difficult, I believe, because I felt like I knew who I was as opposed to what I did.
So I'm gonna dig into some of the tougher parts then of this, because while you're still passionate about what you do, I'm as passionate as I could possibly be about what I do still, because I both think we have found a way to pour into people. We found a way to impact people and coach people, which is what our passion is. But let's make no mistake, there's nothing quite like a Saturday afternoon. There's nothing quite like the Friday night at the hotel before a game. And our football careers are still different than our careers now. So what are some of the things that maybe you miss about the football world? What are some of the things you miss about having a team and playing a game, and some of the things that came along with that career?
Well, and Mark, I'm going to answer that. So when I was about 3 months into owning the restaurant in Houston, there's about 115 Chick-fil-A's in the greater Houston area, and there's some individuals that own more than one. So there's about 75 Chick-fil-A owners in the greater Houston area, and periodically we'll have meetings where all of us get together. And the first meeting I attended was about 3 months after our restaurant opened. And I'll never forget this. I'll never forget this story. We was just getting started, and a long time Houston Chick-fil-A owner, kind of as it was getting started, in front of everybody in a respectful way, not trying to put me on the spot, but he said out loud in front of everybody, "Tony, what's it like not coaching anymore?" And I immediately said, "You know what? I'm still coaching." And as I sit with you today, I looked actually last week. We have almost 140 employees at our location. We call them team members. And as I was going through the Chick-fil-A selection process, which was about a 3-year process to get the franchise, there were certainly a lot of questions. Why do you want to do this? What's your vision like? And the list goes on. And one of the things I stressed to them, not fully knowing this at the time, but that I thought there were a lot of parallels actually between running a football team and owning and operating a Chick-fil-A franchise. And now that we've had it, there's our depth chart. So now that we've had it for a little over 5 years, not only is it everything I'd ever imagined it would be and more, but the parallels are unbelievable. So again, almost 140 team members, extremely diverse, which is one of the things our family loves most about Houston. And our team members need coaching, training, encouragement. We love to, develop and grow our team members. We have competition. So when people truly say to me, "What's it like not coaching anymore?" I truly feel like I am coaching on a daily basis.
So was this something that you did on your own, was create some of those parallels between the team and the organization in terms of the depth chart, in terms of creating competitions, in terms of creating maybe some of the specific trainings and coachings? And are you practicing like you did was that something you did, or was that something that Chick-fil-A said, "Here's how we do it"?
No, it's a great question. It's something that we've done. And when Chick-fil-A determines or decides who they'd like to give one of their franchises to, they have two different types of candidates, what they call internal candidates. And those are individuals that probably started off at 14 years old working at a Chick-fil-A. They've worked all the way up at a local restaurant to probably some sort of director level or general manager. And then they go through the process and they're able to get a Chick-fil-A that way, or external candidates, which I was. So like in my first interview with Jennifer McKinnon at Chick-fil-A corporate, as soon as I sat down, I explained to her, I said, I just want to let you know this right off the bat, but I think I can make cereal, and even our kids would debate that. So I don't know how to make food, and if that's a requirement, then you know what? I appreciate this opportunity. I haven't wasted any of your time. So the external candidates don't necessarily have any restaurant background or certainly Chick-fil-A background, and they may bring some things into the Chick-fil-A family that are a little bit unique from their own experiences. So like one of the things, I mean, several things we do, and I do run it a little bit like a football program. And one of the things at our location we do is we focus on two things. Number one, we focus on our team, and under that team umbrella is a lot of things: training, motivation, encouragement, and then we focus on our community. So we're going to be great at the operational aspects of running our restaurant, but our focus is not on sales. We don't even talk about it. So if someone came into our restaurant, somebody when they visit us from corporate, which is based out of Atlanta, Georgia, and they say, we want to talk to your directors and we want to go over sales, I actually tell them, well, I'm going to have to give them a heads up because they're going to have to look up our sales because that's not our focus. And just like as a coach, no coach ever gets up in front of their team and just talks about winning.
Right.
You'd be wasting time. Everybody wants to win. So you don't talk about winning, but what you do talk about as a coach is here's what we have to do well. If we do these things well, so in football, hey guys, offensively, we cannot turn the ball over. On defense, we've got to take it away. On special teams, we've got to win the battle of field position. On first down, both on offense and defense, we've got to be efficient with our first play. On third down, so you go through everything you have to do well. Yep. And then you work on those things. And at the end of the game, if you've done those things well, you look up at the score, but, oh, you know what? We won 35-3. So yeah. we've been successful because of what we've emphasized. So things like that.
But this was a big transition for me. I want to dive into that. It's easy for us to talk about it in terms of football. What were the keys to making us successful at winning a game? What are those indicators for you guys inside of your business that says, we don't have to worry about the revenue as long as we know we're focusing on this thing? What are the first down efficiencies for you inside of the restaurant? What are the, turnovers and takeaways inside of the restaurant?
Yeah, absolutely. So for us, and everybody's different. I think what I'm about to say will relate to any business, but everybody's different in their philosophy. For us, it totally starts with our people. And when I mentioned to you a couple minutes ago that our two focuses are number one on our team and then number two, our community. Sometimes I like to say in no particular order, but in this case, we focus on our team first. And I do believe it's about our people. So even when you look at football, when I was 2 months in to being a head football coach, I was invited to a banquet here in the greater Houston area. And at the banquet was a gentleman named Coach Donahue, Terry Donahue. He coached for 20 years. And so he had a 20-year head coaching career. I was 2 months into my head coaching career. And we had a chance to talk for about an hour before the banquet began. And as it was winding down, the banquet was starting to kick off. I said to him, I said, Coach, I just got to ask you one last question. You did it for 20 years as a head coach. I'm in it for 2 months. What's the best advice? One piece of advice you can give me. And he didn't flinch. And I'll never forget these words. He said, I've seen bad coaches win with great players. I've never seen a great coach win with bad players. And he said, recruit. And even as the head coach, recruit. And I really spent a lot of time doing that as a coach, and that has carried over to our restaurant. So I believe in the people. And really, so when you ask me, I guess what comes to mind when you ask me how you're measuring that, and I mean, we have in this industry, I guess you'd say there's a lot of turnover. We have very little turnover at our restaurant. We have, again, I looked the other day because it was our 5-year anniversary a couple months ago, and we had over 70 members of our team that have been with us 2 years or more, and about 35 that have been with us 4 years or more. And when you have that kind of continuity and that kind of camaraderie and truly family-like atmosphere, really goes a long way in terms of the goals that you want to accomplish.
And that's got to be an incredible stat, because also in that makeup of employees are high school and college students that are in a super transitional time in their lives. So to have that amount of employees and have them be with you for that long, that's a serious stat, I would imagine.
Well, I appreciate you saying that, and that's again, I talk about philosophy, and everybody's different. I talked to numerous Chick-fil-A owners before we opened up, and again, it all goes back to coaching, and you know this. I mean, I told someone the other day, when you're coaching and you want to get better at something, you don't necessarily go to a coaching clinic, and now you will, but you may not get what you want, but you talk to other coaches that do things well. So I continually talk to other Chick-fil-A owners about things they do well and things they are looking to maybe tweak and change. And I talked to some early on before we even opened that said, hey, I'm not going to hire high school students. They've never had a job before. They're not accountable. They're not reliable. And at our location, we kind of have three high schools that make a triangle around our restaurant. We actually just, a fourth one just opened up a few weeks ago. So now we have four that would be a square around our restaurant. And so we have 90 high school students that are part of our team. And for me, in my mind and our vision was, you know what, I think it's fantastic. They've never had a job before. And we're going to, no better place in hopefully my humble opinion than their first job at a Chick-fil-A restaurant. And then we'll train them and we'll teach them and we'll coach them. And hopefully they'll leave when they graduate and take some skills that they've learned and developed from us onto their future.
So I have a question for you. In football, we were never not recruiting. You were always recruiting. You were always looking to bring people onto the team. It's a year-round cyclical thing because you knew you had people leaving, whether it be through graduation or transfer or injury or whatever. It's a little different in corporate because you have people that are in the job and maybe they're not leaving. Maybe they're there forever. You hope that you have the right fits. Are you ever not hiring?
Always, and I know always is a long time.
Yeah,
we are always hiring every week. No, you're exactly right. We never stop. And even, I mean, I look back to when we opened. Before we opened, we had Chick-fil-A corporate there. They've mastered the art of opening a restaurant, and they sent in 4 what they call grand opening supervisors to be with me for 3 months, 2 months prior to our grand opening, and then 1 month after the restaurant opened. And they helped me, coordinate the initial hiring and what that looked like. And I did they did some screening interviews. I did all the final interviews, and still play a major role in that. But the story I'm going to tell you now is we were really full. We got to the point before we opened where they said, you know what, we're good. We've hired everybody we need to hire. And then the Lyons sisters drove up with their dad, Kaylin and Caitlin, and I interviewed them, and I was like, you know what, we don't have room, but we are adding the 2 of you, and we're making
room.
And they're still with us 5.5 years later. They're both leaders for us. They're both Kaylin's a senior in college and Caitlin's a junior in college, and superstars. And I mean, I could go on about Kaylin and Caitlin, but my point is, yes, we're always hiring, and even if we don't have per se on our depth chart, if you will, a spot, we're going to make room when we find someone that we feel like is a great fit for our team. And you'll appreciate this too. I mean, even 5.5 years ago before we opened, and still to this day, I mean, I'll talk about, hey, if we interview, and I'll say an NFL player, we're going to find a way to add them to our team. Absolutely.
Right. You're not going to say no to great talent. You got to find a way to get them on your team because you know they're going to make you better. I think this question I'm going to ask you might be the toughest one because in athletics, and I point to this all the time when I'm dealing with leaders, a huge component to the development of our athletes is the evaluation of the tape. We get to see what they do all the time, whether it's in high school as we're evaluating them as high school athletes, or whether it's on the practice field and we're reviewing practice tape or game tape, or even the visibility that we got to their attendance in class and the scores on their assignments. So I think it's a huge component of development, visibility into the work. How do you create that inside of a Chick-fil-A?
Yeah, great question. So again, I like stories. Sometimes when people ask me questions, stories come to mind. So before we opened, and I won't give specifics, but I was given very firm advice before we opened, and we were doing our interview process of 2 things. One, if we interviewed anyone with prior restaurant experience, we really were recommended we add them to our team. And then 2, if we interview anyone with prior Chick-fil-A experience, highly recommended you add them to your team. And my response was, had a lot of respect for this individuals that were telling me this, but with all due respect, we're not going to do that. And we feel like, and I felt like I was looking for two things, and I'm very, I felt like I was going to be decent at it because of all the recruiting I did in my coaching career and all the times you had to really make evaluations, and not just off of tape. And I know you reference off of tape, and I know you know this, not just off of tape, but going and talking to the high school counselors, the
janitor.
Yes, people that work in the cafeteria. I mean, everybody. When I would go to a high school and check in, oftentimes at the front desk they'd say, "Okay, this student is going to walk you to see the football coach, or to see the counselor, to see that student, in their class." And even that student who's walking, as we're walking down the hall, "Hey, do
you know about Johnny?"
Yes. Yeah, I got class with him. What's he like? Yes, always evaluating. So I wasn't looking for, just like Chick-fil-A wasn't looking for someone that had Chick-fil-A experience. I wasn't either. And I wasn't looking for someone with restaurant experience or Chick-fil-A experience. I was looking for two things. One, as best we could to gauge character of who's going to be added to our team. And again, when you have, as we do now, almost 140 members of our team, and there's times at our restaurant where the line's out the door, the drive-throughs wrap down the street, and it can be, in theory, stressful.
Sure.
We're just, there's a lot of things going on in life, so selling chicken shouldn't be stressful. But there's some times where there's lines, and 140 team members, and some are. We have some team members that are 14 years old, and all the way through 50s and 60s and 70s even. So everybody's different in terms of how they respond to that type of atmosphere. But looking for high character, and then we're looking for, are they reliable, accountable? And so some of those things we look at, especially for our high school students, is when I interview them, at your school, what are you involved in? What clubs are you involved in? Any sports, band, cheer? And every so often we'll have a student that'll say, "You know what, I don't do anything." Yeah. And then I'll say, "Well, that's great too. So what, when school gets out at 3, what time do you go to bed at night?" "Yeah, about 11 o'clock. So from 3 to 11, what do you do?" Yes. And so I like the students, and I guess I'm being specific on my answer here, sure. But when they say I run cross country in the fall, I go every other Saturday to the Houston Food Bank and volunteer. I have something with my family every Wednesday night. So when I know that they're involved in things, I can typically get a sense for that they've got to be reliable and accountable. If they're the captain of their team, or if they're in the band and they're a drum major. So there's different things. But
so you're using their experiences, and you're getting that 360 view of them. Once you get them in the Chick-fil-A, how do you get enough visibility into what they're doing in order to be able to coach them and guide them?
Well, and again, so I go back to a second ago where I get questions and I have stories that come to mind. I think it's very important. When I coached, I took a lot of pride. I've got several of my former players still, even though I haven't coached in 6 years, that are in the National Football League, and several of them, Brandon Wilson, we recruited him as a running back. I sat down with Brandon after his first year. I said, and I love Brandon. To this day, I love Brandon. And I said, "Brandon, you're doing everything right in the classroom, off the field, on the field." I coached Johnny Patrick at the University of Louisville 20 years ago. "I think you're Johnny Patrick." Johnny was a running back. We moved him to corner. He was a 3rd-round draft pick. "I actually think you're a corner." And then he's still in the NFL playing corner and kick returner. So the reason I tell you that story is because I think it's important that you put people in a position to be successful. So at our restaurant, we had some team members, and within a few weeks, even if they're 16 years old, within a few weeks, we're looking at them and talking about them on our depth chart and saying, "You know what, that's a future leader right there. They're a natural." We have some team members that high character, super responsible. Love serving our community. And some can do more in terms of the responsibilities we're going to give them, and some maybe can't, and that's okay. We're going to put them in a position to be successful. And one of the things I like to tell them, and again, I go back to my football, I would always tell our players and the parents, we're not going to put you in a game until we feel like you're ready to play. So training at our restaurant is very important too, that we do a great job getting them ready. to perform at a high level, helps their confidence, and it certainly helps their satisfaction being a part of our team.
Well, Tony, you have set the record for overtime. We actually went in 8 full minutes over our 8:20 stop Eastern time. And I'm telling you that I could go on with you for another 45 minutes because it's just awesome to hear the way that you've carried the principles over, the way that you continue to be successful as a leader and develop other leaders and run a successful organization. I am super thankful that you came on the show today and was a Huddler in the hot seat. As my last question to you, if there's one thing that everybody who's listening should know about you, what is that one thing?
Oh, it's a great question. All these questions have
Because I didn't even know you were a sax player. So like, there's one thing that I was like, wait a minute, what's the one thing everybody should know?
No, I still play the sax. So you know what, Mark, I'm going to leave you with this. I guess you got me on live air here. And again, before I leave you with this, I do want to tell you thank you so much for reaching out. It's truly an honor that you thought of me and humbled to be with you this morning. I really appreciate it. I guess I'm going to maybe not totally answer the question, but since you let me talk for the last 25 seconds, here's what I'm going to leave our viewers with. 2 things. One, I would encourage everybody to enjoy your family. So we have 4 children. We just dropped our oldest off 11 hours away at college a couple of weeks ago. And it goes by fast. It goes by fast. When I got out of coaching, he was 12. I'm trying not to get emotional talking about it here. So one is I'd encourage everybody to enjoy your family. And then 2, I would just say, and again, I'm not answering your question, so I do sincerely apologize, but I'll just leave everybody with this too. I think people ask me often, what's leadership look like? And I think it starts with genuinely caring for others. And so that's important to me. One of my favorite quotes, if you will, is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. And I think that's what it starts with, at least at our restaurant. And I would encourage anyone watching that's in a leadership position to really care for others. And I think it starts there. So again, honored to be with you. Appreciate everything you do and appreciate our friendship. And
Great comments from people in the show. Carrie says, let's hear it for OT from a great leader. Rick Whalen said, love this, just coaching in a different team. So really fantastic stuff. Tony, thank you for being a great mentor, a great friend, and a great guest. We love you. We thank you. Everybody have a fantastic weekend. We will see you on Monday, and then the anticipated return of Steve Nudelberg will happen on Tuesday. We'll see you guys. Let's get down to business.
Please don't worry about me. I'm about to let my heart speak. Friends keep telling me to leave this. So let's get down to business. Let's get down